How dead is Star Wars? The PlayStation Classic game list revealed, and my, I guess, reaction. Also, how dead is journalism? And in a, I was going to say Trump exclusive, but Patreon supporter exclusive, Trump plans to end birthright citizenship. Hey, I have a lot to complain about, so let's do this.
The recently canceled podcast with Lawn Pride.
Hey, how goes it? So, I hope you guys had a happy Halloween. It was just the other day, and I had a good Halloween. To me, going out and hanging out with friends sucks. So I would rather stay home with a bowl full of candy rather than go trick-or-treating and acquire it, and have a bunch of small children come to my door and be terrified. Now, I didn't actually try to scare them, honestly. I dressed up as a quasi-makeshift version of Brandon Lee's Eric Draven, the Crow, complete with hardly any of the costuming, but I wore black, had my Kyle Reese black, Vietnam era rain jacket, trench coat, kind of put that on. Didn't have any kind of leather duster, so that didn't really work out. But I tried the face paint, and it was way the hell off. It was the first time I painted my face since my solid snake. Well, actually, it's naked snake with the zombie face paint. And that I actually pulled off pretty well. But anyways, I'm at it with the fingers, and I got an oil paint brush. Try to do these lines down the eyes. No blood. Hell, I'm playing the good guy in a fairly, well, I guess it made, $140 million, but now it's a fairly obscure movie. And I thought, okay, this will be fine, terrifying kids and their parents. First one's up, shocked, disbelief. One dad comes by dressed as SpongeBob, and he's got his little girl holding onto his arm. He's like, she's afraid to get any candy, so I guess he was going to go up and get some candy, and I walk closer towards him, and she's like, no, Dad, no, don't. And one of the best reactions was this, I think it was the very last kid that came by. I had kids coming by from 6 to 7:30. These kids gave up. I was waiting till 8. I swear when I was a kid doing this shit, I thought we were going till 9. It felt like, time was so small back then. If you had a timeout for an hour, it felt like you were doing time in Sing Sing. But these kids, they gave up. Sure, it got close to like 40 degrees, but come on, push forward and grab ye candy. I had Snickers and Butterfinger fun sizes, and I was giving out 2 apiece. And, what's really the problem there, right? But yeah, off track. My favorite reaction was this kid dressed up as Captain America, and he just looked confused, like that John Travolta gif where he's in Pulp Fiction trying to hang up his coat on the wall, but he can't find a wall because it's like a circular room. Yeah, he just, what do I do with this? So he grabs a couple pieces of candy, and that was that. But you know what? I also carved a pumpkin. Ghostbusters logo. I intentionally, the original plan was to write not 2016 below, but it was such a pain in the dick getting any of this to work. 2 areas fell off because I didn't keep a very strong connecting point. Had to get out the super glue, which worked fairly well on a pumpkin. So, as I'm scaring them with my face paint, my mom's over there. Oh, hey, just look at the Ghostbuster pumpkin. Isn't that cute? Okay, bye. Nice to see you. She's children's librarian. Some of the kids recognize her and stuff. She didn't have any costume on. They're like, hey, I saw you yesterday. I'm like, way to go, Mom. You're going as yourself from yesterday. But there was something that caught my attention this Halloween with these trick-or-treaters. Now, there was the period of time when I was away at college. So I can't say that this is true for every year, but from 99 to pretty much until this week, every time I've been handing out candy for trick-or-treaters, I have seen a Darth Maul or several. Hey, put on some black robe stuff. Here's the Darth Maul mask. There you go, your Darth Maul in Darth Maul. Cool. This was when he was in one movie and got killed in it, which is pretty telling, really. What it tells is that Lucasfilm totally screwed up killing off a character who would be that popular. Because I don't see anybody wanting to be C-3PO, and yet he's in every movie. Well, I didn't see a single Darth Maul this year. Not a single one. I saw 2 Star Wars costumes, no Star Trek. Mostly it was like princess, maybe butterfly, ladybugs, cutesy stuff. The Star Wars stuff I did see, and we didn't have a large sample size. This is one of the lower turnouts for trick-or-treaters. We were having beautiful 70-degree days, and then, it's Halloween. Here comes a 55 in the afternoon. Probably got down to 45. That's what happened to them. There was 2 boys, I'm assuming brothers. One was Han Solo, and yes, it was the Solo. And one was some kind of stormtrooper. Maybe it could have been clone trooper, probably stormtrooper. I didn't get a good look at his helmet. And that was it on the Star Wars representation. I would say, again, small sample size, probably about 50 kids, but they're not clamoring for Star Wars. I've seen Star Wars in much bigger droves, where every group had somebody with Star Wars. Didn't see a single Rey, thank God. But this has me thinking about the state of Star Wars right now, and what it is to be a kid interested in any media franchise. See, when I was a kid, we weren't really all up into Star Wars. Star Wars had ended just before I was born. And though Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comes out the same year I do, it wasn't until the late 80s, early 90s that it was really massive. You know, at one point it surprised me that the cartoon started in 87, because I probably wasn't watching the cartoon until maybe 88 or 89, you know, as I think about it. I have to wonder if I was into it in 89. I definitely was into Batman, because Batman that summer was big. In 90, Dick Tracy tried to make a push, but the Ninja Turtles was the Star Wars for kids born in the late 80s. And that was cool, because it was our thing. When your parents were little, you know, depending on your age here, maybe they were into Lone Ranger. Now, as somebody tries to bring back Lone Ranger periodically, it doesn't really catch on, because it's not cool. Well, is it not cool because it's a Western, or is it not cool because, hey, that's Grandpa's thing? Star Wars is Dad and Grandpa's thing. It can't resonate with the youth right now because it's not theirs. And the more they put out, the more apparent it becomes that, well, we still want to have the demo that got us here, but we have to kill off the old actors to make room for the new ones, and now we're mitigating things. We're taking out the guys that we like. Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher took herself out. I don't care how else you want to dress it. And you're leaving what you have in the hands of under-talented people. You're making up new characters that are not well developed, and you're like, hey, it's your franchise now. That's the way it's got to be. You know, we realize Harrison Ford can't live forever, so we got to kill him off now. And the kids don't give a shit either way, really. But you piss off the adults, and the adults are the ones that got you here. And if the adults aren't jamming Star Wars down their kids' throat, I don't think the kids go to it. The kids are not going to migrate to Dad's franchise, especially if Dad's not supporting it. And if I was a kid, I would want something brand new. I would be like, hey, what's for us? All I see is you bringing back Ninja Turtles, bringing back Power Rangers, bringing back Star Wars. What is there for us anymore? What do kids have right now that was new? Is there even a new toy franchise? I mean, as I see merchandise come out in stores, it's like Minecraft is the thing for kids. Because everything else was Dad's thing, brought back in part because Dad remembers it. Alright, with that depressing news out of the way, let's talk about the PlayStation Classics game list. Sony actually had the nerve to get this out there. You know, it's bold and brazen to go ahead and announce a classic console without saying the games included. Just, hey, here's a teaser, here's 5. You've heard of some of these, yeah, haven't you? And it's a weird list, guys. It's wild, weird stuff, I'll tell you. This is a bizarre move. I mean, you think that they called it the Classic, right? So you think they're copying Nintendo to some degree. And Nintendo's like, shit, we've been doing this for 2 years now. I think we've got it down. We're able to make the hype item the Furby, the Tickle Me Elmo of the holiday season. We can put this shit out there in October, and people still want it for the holidays. It's going to be available on Black Friday. That's the Nintendo model. Hey, we'll tell you what games are on this shit when you pre-order it. And good luck pre-ordering it. Sony, they're like, hey, you want this thing? It has some games on it. There's going to be 15 more. You going to tell us what they are? Well, we're not going to tell you, unless we tell you. Oh, okay. Well, that's helpful. Not. Well, I am trying to procure one of these as a review unit. I don't think that's going to go over well. I haven't got any kind of notification from Sony, but I did used to see their films in advance way back in the day. Christ, is that like 6 years ago? Oh, time, you fickle enemy of mine. Well, they decided to actually release these games, and I will go through what I know of the titles in alphabetical order here. Battle Arena Toshinden. Possibly the first PlayStation game I ever played at a Blockbuster video kiosk. They used to have these kiosks for games in various places. It wasn't like now where, what, do they, yeah, they have something at Target. They have them at Walmart. They have them at Best Buy, right? You see this stuff at Sears. You used to see this stuff at video stores. And now those who do have video stores, I don't see anybody gaming inside of them. You used to actually be able to rent the system from Blockbuster, and that was kind of cool. Though I never did it, but yeah, they give you like this Pelican case with the Nintendo or what have you in there. And they'd have, I think I've seen Sega Saturns and PlayStation set up. And when you're like 10 years old, seeing one of these that you can touch and it's like, wow, that thing plays CDs and I get to play it. Are you shitting me? It can't be equated to stuff today because you're like on a smartphone. Like we got 10-year-old kids now with smartphones. I tell them, look, when I was your age, I didn't get to have I didn't get to have a smartphone until I graduated college. They largely weren't around. But Battle Arena Toshinden was one of these first games I played, and I haven't played it in 20 plus years. Okay? It got pretty bad reviews, but it seemed like it was one of those early, if not launch games, that at least launched in the US, that people were interested in because it's a 3D fighter and it had weapons. Now, if you're building a classic lineup for the PlayStation, I can see some justification in this. I can see you going, look, why not? Like, let's just give them the non-analog sticks. Let's give them the early games, and that'll be that, right? But you can't quite do that when you throw in, like, Metal Gear Solid in 98, and I think they even have some stuff well after that, too. And, yeah, more on that in a sec. Cool Borders 2. Cool Borders franchise was fairly big on PlayStation. Is it existent now? I don't think so. I have to wonder if it's worth having a franchise that's dead on a classic system. Because Nintendo put out their classic systems, and all the franchises they put on it are still alive and kicking. So, where does this put the PlayStation? It puts them in this weird pickle where they're looking for stuff to put on here, and I think I have some rhyme and or reason behind that when I get through the list. Destruction Derby. Haven't played it. Frankly, I never heard of it. I guess there's a Destruction Derby 2, and as is the case for most of these games, people prefer the sequels. Well, Super Nintendo Classic, even if I prefer Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, they still have Super Mario World on there. so you complete the set. You know, you don't get to complete the Donkey Kong Country set, but anyways, Final Fantasy VII. This is a greatest game of all time contender. It doesn't age that great, and it's not because of the graphics, frankly. Yeah, the cutscenes, they trail behind what we have today. I got that. Yes, there isn't any vocals. There's no voice acting. Perhaps no voice acting is better than bad voice acting, because the majority of PlayStation titles that had voice acting had shite voice acting. The reality was that it was a fairly new thing to script a game, and you had a lot of unnatural performances. And you didn't have anybody really keen on directing these performances. And so you'd end up with, well, you were almost a Jill sandwich. And that's the way that sort of thing went down. It also gives you more of jumping into this immersion factor. You're in the game more if you're reading it. You know, by the time you see something like Final Fantasy Advent Children and you hear Cloud's voice and you're like, ah, they made him emo. It doesn't live up to the voice you gave him in your head, does it? So there is something to be said about that. I think the biggest limitation, the fighting system, you're not going to enjoy the random encounters, but they're a necessity of the game. That's how you have to level up to deal with bosses. How you increase your materia, your armor, equipment, all this stuff. It's a fickle thing. But then when you want to summon some shit, yeah. Oh, hey, I'm gonna summon Bahamut now. Okay, I'm gonna put on some hot dogs. Yeah, sit for a minute through some of these summons, guys. See how much you enjoy that. Grand Theft Auto. This makes a lot of sense to me. Hey, Grand Theft Auto, massive franchise to this day. You want to see the origins? Here you go. Should have included Grand Theft Auto 2, but Intelligent Cube. Never played. I think I've heard of it in passing. I think it's a good idea to have a puzzle game or two on here. Jumping Flash. I hadn't heard of it until it was shown in the release lineup on the initial announcement. My understanding is it's something of a first-person platformer, though I've always read that Mirror's Edge was the first-person platformer. This would definitely have to take the cake there. And so it flexes some early muscle for the 3D capabilities of the system. I can understand its inclusion. Metal Gear Solid, a greatest game of all-time contender, a no-brainer here. Now, consider this. I've never played Metal Gear Solid with the DualShock controls. Actually, you know what? I'm lying. I have. Because I fired it up on the PlayStation 2 and it has the texture smoothing. And it made the game look a little better. And the PlayStation 2, of course, has the DualShock 2 controller. So I guess I have done this. But I haven't done that on the PlayStation. And a lot of people say that it's required on the PlayStation, that you need a rumble for the Psycho Mantis fight. I remember Psycho Mantis, like, turning off the TV and it would say Hideo in the corner, right where my TV would say video, and that really freaked me out. Like, what, is he hacking some shit? What? And then you had to, like, change the controller port. I wonder if you're going to have to do that here, how that's going to affect this. But people are complaining that you're going to have a lack of aiming ability without the analog sticks. Well, being a Konami title, what's to stop them from having Castlevania Symphony of the Night? Because I'll tell you this, the lack of Castlevania Symphony of the Night is causing pre-order cancellation. I can tell you that right now. Mr. Driller. I approve of this. I've played some Mr. Driller on DS, and it was pretty sweet. Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. This was a pretty big game when the system launched, and Oddworld's still kind of a thing. I think it's been a little ways, but you know, I can totally understand that. It's good to have some sprite work in here, you know, mix it up a bit. Same for Rayman. You want to see Rayman's origins? Okay, here we go. Resident Evil Director's Cut. A lot of questions raised here. Is this going to be Resident Evil's Director's Cut or Resident Evil Director's Cut now with DualShock support? Seeing as how it doesn't have the DualShock support from the controllers, this may not be the DualShock version. People complain that the music is bad in that version. That's the only version I've played. So I've got to wonder what the music's going to be like here, to be honest. But this is a game where you're like, look, Resident Evil's still fairly big right now. It's still live and kicking. You want to see the origins? Here you go. Resident Evil 2 is the better game. But, you know, I guess you can't put everything on here. Revelations Persona. Haven't played it. Heard good things. Is that a JRPG type thing? Ridge Racer Type 4. Shouldn't be on here. Ridge Racer is, I'm assuming, a dead franchise. I don't think I've heard anything of them in a while. Why couldn't you get the first party game Gran Turismo? And Gran Turismo 2 for that matter. Those are Sony properties. This is Sony's thing. It's like Sony doesn't even have first party support for their own console. It's friggin' bizarre. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. Never played it. Occasionally saw it in some magazines somewhere. Wouldn't we be better off having maybe something like Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter Alpha 2 on here? It wasn't that available on it. Rather than this like cutesy puzzle thing. Because we already have a couple puzzle type things here, if not several. Siphon Filter, haven't played it, heard good things. I think the franchise is dead, and so it's weird having these like, hey, it was a franchise on the PlayStation, kinda. You know, with that in mind, Crash Bandicoot is kind of been revived with the Insane Trilogy. Yeah, you have a remake of the first game out there last year on your PlayStation 4. Why not kick out that original version? Put that on the device. Crash Bandicoot was billed in the commercials like some kind of attitude mascot a la Sonic the Hedgehog trying to combat Mario. That was like his shtick. He would go to like the Nintendo headquarters and heckle them with a megaphone. That's when the ads were so much more in your face and extreme and Gen X and shit. I mean, you know, attitude. And if that's the mascot of the system, especially in the early versions of the system, and really throughout the system's life on the PlayStation, why is he not present? Tekken 3. I would have liked to see a Tekken 1, 2, and 3. I've never played 1 or 2 on the PlayStation. Played Tekken 3 aplenty. Tekken 3 is definitely the graphical peak as the Tekken games go on the PlayStation. It was a very slick-looking game. It didn't look too far off from the arcade. The primary difference, I believe, being that the arcade had 3D polygon rendered backgrounds, and this one on the PlayStation had 2D, but they rotated, and hell, you couldn't interact them in the first place, and you weren't really watching them, you're fighting, so it worked out. Tekken 3 is a pretty good choice. It just doesn't make a ton of sense if the beginning of the franchise is, and it's a live franchise still, why not give us the first one? Hey, let's experience the origin of the franchise. It starts with 3 and half the characters are old. Whatever. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. I don't know what they were doing here. I played quite a bit of Rainbow Six on PC, and this game is a biatch. This game is, I direct you guys to go over here, I give you the go code, you knock over that door, you throw the flashbang, you try to rescue the hostage. If there are any shots fired, someone is incapacitated or killed. There's not a lot of, oh, it grazed me in this game. There's no room for error. I've heard people say decent things about the PlayStation version. I don't see how you can pull off a great FPS without dual analog sticks on a console that's having a tough go as is with 3D polygon effects. But you definitely can't, issue out the go codes. I looked at a long play briefly of this and comparing it to the PC version. Totally different game all around. This is an incredibly gimped version of the PC game, and not something the system's known for. Twisted Metal. Okay, I understand this. Now, here's something to consider. Twisted Metal, I don't think it's still a franchise, but it was a big thing on the PlayStation. This is a game that is 75 megabytes big. It's a pretty small game. Could that lead to something here? You know, is this why they didn't have Twisted Metal 2? How come we couldn't have something like Jet Moto? I know it's not a thing now, but it was a thing on the PlayStation. Wipeout. I think there might be a Wipeout game recently on the Switch. You know, could we have had a Wipeout game? That would have been cool. Wild Arms. Hadn't played it. This is a JRPG, I believe, right? I'm kind of looking forward to playing that one. But consider this, guys. All these games in e-boot form, that's like dumped ROM type stuff for those of you doing the emulation. All these games add up to under 8 gigabytes. Which means they could have an 8 gigabyte NAND on board. So the memory on the PlayStation Classic, possibly 8 gigabytes, and thus the mandate for these games, these 20 games, they said, look, we have to do 20 because we don't want to have like 15 and be well under the Super Nintendo, which is on shelves right now. I've seen one in the wild for the first time at my local Walmart. They've got Super Nintendo and the NES. They got both of them now. First time seeing that in the wild. That's out there. They have tons of games on them, right? They can't show less games because for the mom walking by, well, this one has 15 games. And so they pick up the NES. They pick up the Super Nintendo. Oh, well, I didn't know the difference, right? They're all gray, you know, something like that. What if the mandate was we have to be below 8 gigabytes with this running smoothly at 8 gigabytes memory so that we can save on some chip? You know, 16 gigabytes would have been pretty cool. 8 gigabytes, still a lot more than what the Super Nintendo and NES Classic have. But not a ton. There's not a lot of leeway here to add stuff. You, at this point with this list, I mean, hell, there's not even a Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider is a system mascot. That is a game largely associated with the PlayStation. No Tomb Raider present. With so many games you wanted to play not here, if you want this device, you're crossing your fingers for hackability. And you're crossing your fingers for day one Hack Chi Community Edition, get on this right away hackability. Because I don't see a lot of people too infused for these games. There are some here that you've probably played to death. Maybe you have them on another setup. If you're really that much into them, maybe you have a FrameMeister and you're firing up on your original hardware. I don't think that there's a huge issue with having some games that are lesser known in just a few cases here, you know, because you don't want to buy this thing because it has all the games you used to play. You need to be able to explore something new, and they're suggesting, hey, go play Intelligent Cube. If you haven't played it, here it is. I can see a few games out there being these weird outliers where it's like, you know, go play this too. Give it a shot. I can see that. But this right here, man, oh boy. You know what you're getting. Do you need to review it, really? I mean, you gotta have to kind of review each game to really review the unit. But if you've played these games and things run smooth enough and the UI's there, you know up front what you're getting. Is it worth $100 to you? All right, I want to talk about journalism being a lost cause as of recent. And it doesn't matter if it's fake news or if it's real damaging. I think that we have a scruples issue in journalism. There's such a lack of journalism integrity, and people are taking headlines at face value. They're misinterpreting them. They're misleading. They're angled to deceive and get you to click on stuff. And it doesn't matter who's doing it. It's especially dangerous when it's a newspaper, because now they know they have to get the clicks to stay afloat. You see, somebody like MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, ABC News, what have you, with television, they can get by on viewers on TV. They can still cut in when something's important and give you that live feed of the president talking and issuing some commands. They have that privilege. The newspapers are like, here, come look at us. We still exist. Case in point, I want to single out something I saw here. This was, and I hate Twitter as a news source, but it led me to this story, okay? And I'm going to try to read as much of this verbatim for you and possibly mispronounce stuff. That's just the way it's going to be. The Twitter moment / I think they want to call these events, actually. It says, headline, Better Call Saul actor cut off his own arm and posed as war veteran to get roles. All right, how do you read that? Did he cut off his arm and pose to get roles? Or did he cut off his own arm? Also, he posed as a veteran to get roles. Below, it says. And who types this up? Don't know. Twitter moment editorial staff. Which is deceiving as all shit. If Twitter is going to create headlines and tiny little blurb stories, then they need to be held accountable as any other news organization. It's not just as simple as, oh, it's aggregation. Nope, nah, don't play this. It says here, actor Todd LaTourette, possibly mispronounced, who appeared on Better Call Saul and The Men Who Stare at Goats, told a New Mexico news outlet that he was coming clean to raise awareness about mental health issues. He said he initially lied to get jobs, but continued the fiction when he started acting because it helped his career. Okay. So the guy lied about, it doesn't say, but he's coming clean to raise awareness because he lied. I mean, it doesn't immediately say there. Okay. I got you so far. Let's continue with this. Page6.com, this is what? Is it Washington Post or New York Post? New York Post, okay? New York Post puts out the tweet, Better Call Saul actor admits to cutting off own arm, comma, posing as war veteran. Okay, the comma is always an and when it's read like this. In their story, first sentence, a would-be actor took a shockingly extreme step to improve his career by cutting off his own arm so that he could more easily pose as a war veteran, only to have a handful of small, modest parts to show for his extreme and bloody trouble. Okay, according to the way this is written, he purposely cut off his arm with the intention, he cut off his own arm with the intention of being like, hey, if I cut off my arm, I can say I'm a veteran and they can give me some roles. Oh, hey, we want to help out the veterans. Here, you can play a guy who's got the PTSD and shit. That's how that reads. As quoted by him, he says, a couple paragraphs below, I severed my hand with a skill saw. He told the outlet, the state of my mind was a psychotic episode. That's all the clarification we get. So, was he having some kind of weird psychotic episode and cut off his own hand? And then afterwards is like, oh man, what am I going to do? Well, you know what? I could pose as a veteran and try acting. I've been trying to act and it's not working, but you know, maybe I can get there's got to be some roles in here. Which is it? Because these are two different stories. The lack of clarification, guys, lesson, it doesn't matter if it's Trump, it doesn't matter if it's about road construction or celebrity gossip. Only believe what's in the quotes. Alright, that's going to do it for this week's free version of the recently canceled podcast, episode 35. I hope you guys are enjoying these. I'm going to start trying to answer questions like a mailbag type thing, but I want those questions to come from the Patreon supporters. So if you want to ask me a question and you'd like it answered on air, and it doesn't matter what it is, it will be answered on air. Truthfully, honestly, the Von Fry way. The recently canceled way. Go ahead, hit up the Patreon. Subscribe for $1 a month, gets you full access and unlocks the hidden content that I know YouTube would straight up demonetize.